Hello, everybody. Good you're here on this cold, windy autumn night. My name is Daan Dekker. I'm your moderator tonight. We're going to do something special tonight, something interesting. We will compare a city with more than 35 million inhabitants with a small village. That small village is Amsterdam. Is that possible? Is a question I got a lot last days. I think it's possible. You will see. Wait. The reason we're here, the base for this night, is this great book. It's quite heavy. I'm going to try to lift it. Real Urbanism. It's edited by the well-known urban designer Ton Schaap. He's over there. And released more or less a year ago. The book consists 11 stories, chapters, with 11 stories about 11 different cities all over the world. And the book tells how those cities became as they are today. From Paris to New York, from Amsterdam to Tokyo. And when I sat with Ton to discuss this night, what are we going to do with this book? How can we use this book to organize a great night? We decided we had to focus. We could have used all the cities tonight to have great, interesting discussions. But we chose for maybe, well, that's my opinion, the most interesting, fascinating city, and that's Tokyo. And of course, for our home base, Amsterdam. We're going to do it with great speakers. Our special guest is Naohiko Hino. He's sitting over there. Give him a warm welcome. He arrived yesterday from Tokyo, and he's going back tomorrow to Tokyo. Only for you people, really. We will do it with Theo Baert. He made the great pictures. You see 2 of them here for the book. A great job, I think. He went to all the 11 cities to make his beautiful pictures. And he's going to give a presentation about his photographer's view on both cities, Tokyo and Amsterdam. And we have I could say the missing link here between Amsterdam and Tokyo. Moriko Kida, also a warm welcome for you. Born in Tokyo, but based in Amsterdam. So if somebody knows both cities, it's Miss Kida. Welcome. But of course, we're going to start the night with Ton Schaap. Give him a warm applause. Do you want something to drink?
Yes.
To start with. Idea. It's going to be a long night. You have to talk a lot. So.
Only 2 hours.
Yeah. Ton, can you tell us something about why this book? How did it?
Yeah, I was then teaching in the Academy of Architecture, and the director said, well, if you finish your teaching, a 3-year period, then you have to make a book. That's one. And there was a crisis, I think 2011 or 12, real estate crisis. So everybody was thinking, well, do we need urbanism? What is urbanism? Do we have to invent new urbanism for Amsterdam? So everybody was discussing. Disrupting was a word that was used. So I thought, well, let's make a book then and try to find out what kinds of urbanism there are in the world. Of course, I had seen all these cities, and you know immediately that they do different things on different locations. And Tokyo, for example, was the most strange city I had seen.
Why?
It's totally overwhelming. It's something you cannot orient yourself in immediately. Only after a few days you start understanding how it works and you can find your way. So that's the total opposite of, well, for example, Paris. But Paris knows everybody, so Paris is not in the book. But Amsterdam is something in between. We have sometimes urbanism and sometimes we have bottom-up organic growth.
Yeah.
And I wanted to show all these examples. And I had one example that had made me choose for urbanism as a profession. That was the book, an American book, Bacon, Edmund Bacon, Design of Cities. And it's a nice combination of text and beautiful pictures.
Yeah.
So I also wanted beautiful pictures.
Yeah. What's in your eyes the best, or the best planned city in the world? Where you think this is?
Well, the nicest piece of urbanism in this book, I think, is the new town of Edinburgh. That's a thing aus einem Guss, as the Germans say. And they planned it and they did it, and it is a.
My German is not so good, Ton. So,
uit één giet.
Okay.
It's like ijzergieten. Dus dat is echt uit graniet gegoten in één klap.
Yeah.
So Edinburgh is a very nice example, and it also changed the city totally because they didn't extend the old city; it was not possible. So they made a new one on the next hill, connected with a bridge. It's beautiful.
Can you tell us how complicated is it design a city?
That's very complicated because you can never do it alone. You work with many people together, and you can have a crisis, and then you have to change the plan and all that kind of thing. Think of
frustrating job.
Huh?
Frustrating job.
No, well, sometimes, yeah, but also very rewarding if something happens. That is okay.
Yeah, yeah. In the book, you compare the profession of urban planner with the profession of farmer. Could you explain?
Yeah, you have to prepare the earth. For growing of things, because we don't build the city, we don't build houses. We have to take care that houses are being built in a good way, that is good for the city and good for the people who live in the city. So it's also invisible most of the times. Urbanism can be not very oppressive or very heroic. It can also be very normal.
Yeah.
But it's also very necessary. If you don't do it, and you cannot live if there's not a sewer and if there's not electricity and that kind of thing. Nobody thinks about that, but that's the beginning.
Yeah, and you have to be patient.
I think so, yes, and I'm not very patient myself.
Okay. That's a problem then.
Yeah, that's a frustration. Eh?
Yeah. Tom, we have Mr. Hino here.
Yeah.
What he wrote?
Tokyo.
He wrote a story about Tokyo. Why did Mr. Hino wrote that story? Can you give him a small introduction?
Yeah, it's very simple. I simply asked Moriko Kira, do you know anybody who can write a good and short piece about Tokyo? And she immediately said, oh yes, I know one. So we met. I went to Tokyo, I went to his house, and we walked around. He has a computer. You can stand on any place in Tokyo, and then he has all layers of the city from now until 5 years after Christ. All layers are in his computer. So you can see what there is now and what there has been before and how it's developed. And Tokyo has a much more moved history than Amsterdam. They have earthquakes, they had wars. It is awful. Yesterday we were in a cafe, and then the man in the cafe said, yes, I'm the 4th generation. This cafe has been here for 128 years. And Hino said, well, that's not possible in Tokyo. Then we have had 2 earthquakes and 1 war at least. So everything has been away and has been built up again.
Yeah. And that makes Tokyo also interesting, of course.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So if I see the picture, you both walking through Tokyo with a computer and stopping on every corner and... Yeah, nice. Sounds
and now
good.
we have the same clothes. So
Yeah. He's only a little bit smaller. That's the difference. But okay, yeah.
It's not to be repaired.
Mr. Hino, be welcome on the stage. Give him an applause again. It works, I think.
Yes.
You arrived yesterday in Amsterdam. It's your 2nd time or 3rd time?
3rd time? 4th time.
4th time already. What's the first impression if you arrive in Amsterdam as?
Most strong impression is this kind of discussion for me, because in Tokyo it's very rare to have this kind of public discussion about urbanism itself. So, strong impression I get last time to be there.
Yeah, you were a guest speaker during Remake City 2 years ago, or 1.5 years ago. There's no discussion in Tokyo. The Japanese just do it.
No, there is some discussion, but not really public, because some people who related with that subject will discuss, but the other people don't care about it.
Yeah.
So there is separation.
Yeah, it's more layered.
Indifference and maybe lack of the attention.
Yeah.
And lack of curiosity about the interesting point of urbanism.
Other people, yeah. You're going to tell us the history of Tokyo.
I try.
You try. I saw the presentation already. You will. Here. Thank you.
Thank you for giving my chance to talk about Tokyo here in Amsterdam. It's a big pleasure for me. But I have to start with these images. When I receive this image, I feel a little bit uneasy. Because I don't think Amsterdam is like this. And also Tokyo is not like this. But maybe this is only for the easy to understand contrast for the subject. But we have to walk away from this. Which one? Tokyo had been an exotic city for Westerner for a long, long time. And we have enough of this kind of stereotype images. The many movies, like Blade Runner or Black Rain or something, there is always night and rain and neon. And it's not like that. There is 5 keywords for today. I have to focus on post-war period, and I concentrate on today's Tokyo. So I have to make this 2 sets and 1 point. The first 2 is Mr. Forgiver, Form Giver, and Regulation. There is 2 guys. Maybe you know the name Kenzo Tange, the architect. And the other guy you may not know. He's not famous outside Japan. Eika Takayama is a kind of founder of the theory of urbanism, urban planning. And Kenzo Tange is a student of him. He studied, worked under Takayama during World War II. These 2 guys make a plan of reforming Tokyo as a Japanese empire during World War II. He made a more political or ceremonial city. And Takayama is more or less professional for urban planning. He do conservative, this kind of urban planning. And he made a system and a method of post-war urban planning in Japan. And to make a foundation of urban planning, he put 3 factors. No, he put emphasis on these 3 factors: quantity, like population or industry, and density for the, of course, density of population or distribution of industry, and mobility for infrastructure of moving, like train or road system or something. And he always hesitated to design by himself. He made a framework, but not draw a picture. Prefer to work with architects like Tange. Tange, he is the architect of the most famous architect in 1960, and he is Mr. Form Giver, and he is kind of Siam guy. This architecture is his work. And he made this plan, published in 1961, but the title is A Plan for Tokyo 1960. It's a huge plan. Here is the Imperial Palace, and urban access go across the Tokyo Bay, 27 kilometers. But his megalomaniac plan was backed by the projects went on for the Olympic game in 1964. For an example, a construction of totally new 33-kilometer highway running through Tokyo was underway. It's built from 1959 to 1964, so 5 years. They made a high, oh no, sorry. From here to go through like this length of highway built on the river or in the middle of the city, they can do it. So that kind of example shows evidence that what industrial productivity of Japan at the time could achieve. So he feel it must be possible. And he have great interest with kind of social engineering. And his plan was based on comprehensive macro analysis, like demographic idea and population change of population or the industrial proportion change. So how people will gather to Tokyo, he forecasted, and based on it, he made a plan. And also, in his mind, he hated market economy, maybe some of you also. And rather, he preferred economic regimentation or totalitarianism by technocrats. For him, the Tokyo Bay was a reserved space for huge development without avoidance of land speculation. It's vacant and he can do anything. He never trusted bottom-up urbanism of discussion. But of course, nobody took this project seriously. Tange kept his obsession to give a form of society. So Mr. Form Giver want to give a society a form. But he headed to, so as a result of rejection, he headed to developing country and did some city planning, like in Abuja, new capital of Nigeria, and it was built. And the absence of Mr. Form Giver, like Tange, finally resulted in the urban planning without spatial design or figurative design. Value-neutral formal regulation become a reality of Japanese urban planning. So, but it's a phenomena, what happened, but there is context. We have to think about typology or consensus. I made a line on it. I mean, absence of typology and absence of consensus. This is Tokyo in 1865, in Edo era, before Meiji Restoration. You can see a homogeneous townscape. All building is made of timber structure and roofed by traditional roofing and plasterwork and so on. There is a formula of people making buildings. After Meiji Restoration, you can see the homogeneous landscape like this. You cannot say Tokyo is a chaotic city with this. There is order, strong order of building culture and what is city. But after Meiji Restoration, Western style architecture was introduced by government. And every step of modernization disturbed the harmony of townscape again and again. This is traditional one, and here is something strange. This is one of first Western style building in Tokyo. It's National Bank. And this is a townscape of Ueno in the end of Meiji era. Here is traditional city, and here comes, this is a toy shop, but anyway, Western style building. And small one we can see here. And there is nothing common with this and this. And so they have to find how to deal with it. But it's very difficult. And the earthquake, as Tom said, the red area is burnt area by Kanto earthquake in 1923. And war. Air raid was done in 1945, and you can see, the date of the picture, 46 February 13, so half year after the end of the war. Great picture. And you can see some small blips around here. It's remaining building. And the other part is completely flattened. The burnt area by World War II is this red area. It's huge. You may visit, if you visit Tokyo, you may visit Asakusa or Shinjuku. And this is heart of the city, all burnt. And this map shows land usage in 2011, I think. So mixed. It's almost 30 kilometers from east to west, north and south. Maybe you don't know Godzilla, but it's a kind of monster movie. And it's typical scene of how Godzilla come to Tokyo. He always crash city, building, everything. And this is just a monster movie, fiction, but it have often noted that the destruction by Godzilla was a reflection of mental trauma of World War II, the corruption of city. People don't say it clearly, but may keep in mind the catharsis of the destruction, or frustration, or uneasiness feeling for the reality of the city. This is Tokyo government building. It should be done. And this is new one. I think 2 years before, there is another version of Godzilla movie and completely destroyed the center of the Tokyo. Godzilla also the destruction, did the destruction again and again. And it's not nonsense to think the modernization itself has been a Godzilla for Tokyo. (1865) and 2019. Here you can see some green. And the picture, this was taken there. Because it's a kind of hill, and shrine is on top of it. And we can see the panorama from here before, 150 years before. But it's not possible now, all surrounded by high building. Now I take a present example, Shibuya development. Shibuya station is here, and the size is 2 kilometers, 2 kilometers. One of major sub-center of Tokyo. And now there is more than 20 high-rise will be completed in years, maybe in just 10 years. And you can see this pink done by one developing company. And the other, this violet one, is done by another company. But anyway, urban tissue formed through the post-war period crashed with this development. You can see the promotion. I would say insane. These highlights have nothing with Shibuya. Shibuya have a kind of mixture of many different characters. But this highlights was interested in the number of people who gather in Shibuya. And so they want to build up the floor as they can. But they don't give anything to Shibuya, the city. The people anxious about the development will disturb the character of Shibuya, but I don't think so. The projects are huge, actually, but still smaller than city itself. And you can see a kind of leaves of area, I would say leaves of area. Like here, the red one, this is a young fashion complex. A small shop is here. And you can see another blue district, it's for business. And this kind of yellowish one is educational. This is a university, and this is the university. And here is a more residential area and residential area. And here, it's Harajuku, is so mixed. There is so many pieces of area gathering in Shibuya. And I think the highlights will be one of them, or erode with this area. So, and for us, there is so many projects like this. This is Shibuya one, and this is another company doing. And Shinjuku, Ikebukuro, and the other area. And another station will be here and doing this huge development. Those projects are executed by private capital with help of East regulation by public authority. Welcome investment. Same thing happened in Amsterdam, I think. Unfortunately, there is no stable basis for the future vision. All they can do is just a project making and a speculation. But still, there is something another in Tokyo, I think. The fineness, I would say. This is typical scene in Tokyo. Oh, sorry. This is one of the first huge development with that scheme. And around there, there is modern or contemporary building. And beforehand, you can see shrine, the gate of shrine and old houses. It's always like this in Tokyo. You can see Ikebukuro's highlights, but the neighborhood is like this. And tower apartment and this kind of timber residence. This is part of Shibuya development. And beside, there is a drinking corner. And this is nothing, but I feel really Tokyo type townscape. And this kind of thing. This kind of thing. Now, I think I take this picture 10 years before, maybe. Here is highlights. So this kind of fineness reflect their intention or no, their fineness to feel about city or reflect the tradition of building. So I will say the absence of shared vision for the city, how city should be, makes the absence of typology and consensus. And the result is the absence of Mr. Forgiver. He go out for Nigeria or somewhere, and urban planning going to regulation. And the fineness makes exuberance of minor urbanism. And someday, maybe we are in the process of making another basis of urbanism. And we are in the process of emergence of spontaneous vision of the city. Maybe, and I'm not sure, but the basis, lack of basis, absence of shared vision is ubiquitous problem for the contemporary city. The historical context makes the city a characterful thing, but we usually lose it. So maybe that might be a point of today's discussion. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hino. Stay here with me. 4 minutes. If I think about the Japanese, I think about people who plan really well if you take a look to the Olympics, for example, in 2020 in Tokyo, I think it's almost finished already, all the stadiums and everything. How do you explain that there is not a good vision on planning a city? It's a kind of a paradox for me.
Tokyo is in the process of making something, but also major city. It's so dense, it's so complex. There is difficulty to move something. And politicians don't care about the urbanism itself. So in 1964, there is some positive attitude for urbanism. But for 2020 game, I don't think so.
Yeah, but is there a do people want to have their city planned, or do the people from Tokyo, do they like the city as it is now?
There is a kind of a tendency to be cynical for urban planning. Rather, they feel easy with the present position, present situation. So there is no strong backup for the pushing planning.
Yeah. Are there sometimes protests or people?
No. They
No.
don't. They really
No?
don't care.
No. Okay.
But of course, when in front of your house there is a project of building high-rise, there is some conflict.
Yeah.
But usually it will be compensated with some deal.
Yeah.
Nothing more than that.
Yeah. Yeah. Are there any questions from the audience? I see a hand there. Yeah,
I was curious why the train station in Tokyo looks very similar to the one in Amsterdam. If there's some historical connection there?
Yeah, it was said that the architect referenced the Amsterdam station, but I'm not very sure. The detail is very different and the plan is different, so I'm not sure, but it was said. And the architect is one of the first architects in Japan who studied Western style architecture. He is Kingo Tatsuno, and he doing with brick and white band of the stone in architecture.
Yeah.
His original style, and there is plenty of that kind of building
the Western
in Amsterdam.
influence came.
And Amsterdam is one of big major reference, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Are there more questions?
Mr. Hino, recently the Tsukiji seafood, the wholesale market was torn down and moved to Tokyo Bay. That was in the planning, of course, for many, many years with some political problems. But I understand that under the pressure of the Olympics, this huge lot very close to Ginza is actually being used now as a hub or as a transportation hub. What is the latest information on this huge piece? Is there going to be a residential building or offices or what?
A real insider here. Yeah.
The municipality of Tokyo want to move the weight point from west to east generally. And first, I think 2016, they want to be a candidate for Olympic game.
Yeah.
And at that time, they want to make a stadium or something in Bay Area. But afterward, many tower apartments built on that area, so they rejected and doing today's plan.
Yeah.
So first, they want to use Bay Area more for next Olympic game, but they just take it off.
See, if you take a look, you showed all the also the small houses. Do they demolish a lot at the moment, or does that happen? Or are those houses protected in a way?
The land is so so divided into small pieces. So it's very difficult to develop development of big land. High-rise needs big land, so it takes time to gather the small piece of land.
But they try it?
Yeah, yeah.
So you have to buy one house by another.
So it takes 20 years or something.
Yeah.
So it's great job, and a little of them
by bit,
might be necessary.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, and
Thank
we
you.
see you later at the panel discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
We go to Amsterdam. Tom, the stage is yours. Give you the mic. Here you are.
Thank you. I also concentrated on the post-war period. Let's say 1945 until I go here, until now. The city is going to have a kind of third dimension, as you see. This is from Houthavens, Westerkerk, Rai Hotel, Zuidas. My housing career in Amsterdam started here in 1983. So I could see the new miracle of, from inside. The apartment was beautiful, it was here, 13th floor. A view from Utrecht to the dunes. This is the entrance of it. And this is what happened to the flat that was behind. You see this one. That is now these low houses. Well, the street has, these are these apartment blocks. This is from the metro station. Well, all these images are very much different from the Tokyo images, as you realize. And here you see a flat, the Kleiberg flat, that has recently been totally brought back to the original status, and a very big success. And all architects did that. And this kind of photos you can make of this, well, ideal city. Bijlmermeer. Here the Queen is admiring the results. And here you see the variation, or the variation on all these elevated roads have been lowered now, so the separate traffic system is not working anymore. And here's the inspiration of this whole kind of thinking: the city as a park, the city as a green space in the first place, separate roads, housing surrounded by trees and grass. A beautiful image, of course. And here you see his thing there. It's all orthogonal, but it's the same kind of thing. This is a plan by Rem Koolhaas for a revamp of the whole situation. That was the same scale of thinking of a whole part of town, and not what happened in reality. It was smaller plans, because everybody thought, well, plans of this scale it's too big. It is not controllable. It is not. We have to think small. Back to the 70s, one could say. This church, I was in the building committee. Well, it was originally on the lowest level of a parking garage. So people had to go under the parking garage to find a dark space where then the church was. It was very interesting. I found it very interesting, in fact. But they owned the land, so when they had to move because they wanted to take away the parking garage, they had money for building a new thing. It still works. And of course, this is the end of the period that you could call modern. Modern urbanism, modern architecture, modernist. Mondriaan was the inspiration. And this is how these ensembles looked when they were new and fresh. Kind of weightless architecture, a special emphasis on car traffic, beautiful viaducts, a kind of flowing space all over and through. This was the plan that was at the basis of it. And this is the drawing of Buitenveldert, and this is of West. It's not a very good picture, but you can also see that they made an attempt to really finish in a very neat way the old part of town, then the park, and then the new situation. And you can also see that the plan was very global, and that by working on ensembles time and time again, some continuity came into it because of some people were 30, 40 years involved in this all, in the realization of this plan. And then there came a kind of disruption in the form of structuralism. Van Eyck's orphanage was, of course, the biggest stone in the pond. And Constant, who worked a lot with Van Eyck, said, we have to stain Mondrian's clean virginity, if necessary, with our misery. It's my own translation. We moeten Mondriaans schone maagdelijkheid bevlekken, desnoods met onze ellende. Dus dat moet je, you have to think about it as a kind of, well, people were really bored with the old stuff and they wanted something new. And here they tried it in Nieuwmarktbuurt, not make a big road, but repair the old houses that are still good and do very small and good, very well designed new complexes, make it in. Not in a retro way, but in a kind of modern way. Aldo van Eyck's famous playing grounds. And here you see the proposal of Constant for this part of Van Eesteren's AUP area, where it must be much more interesting, much more differentiated, much more chaotic, and especially these areas where it becomes a little bit too much repetition. And that's the story of Amsterdam urbanism all the time. It starts with inspiration, and then slowly it goes from quality to quantity. And then you get in a kind of, well, and of course this was the end of modernism. And here you see our own Kenzo Tange. It's not 27 kilometers, but 6 kilometers, but still a very big plan. Megalomaniac is the right word. And then, of course, came postmodernism. Roma Interrotta, Rome Interrupted, 1978. I was studying at the academy. This is the famous Nolly map, and it was divided in squares that were given to all the angry young architects of that time. Well, I'll not go into detail. That was in my head when I started working in a new group of colleagues on a master plan for the Eastern Docklands. Of course, one of the heroes was Venturi. Ed Taverne gave beautiful lectures about him. It was about well, learning from Las Vegas, complexity and contradiction in architecture, and also the pedestrian scale and the mixtures, continuities of styles of the Italian piazzas were a significant revelation for Americans and for modern architects. So that they rediscovered the pedestrian scale, the pedestrian speed. So here you see the combination of Las Vegas and Rome, but there were also more serious, well, not very serious, but still interesting. This was the organizer of the whole Roma Interrotta exhibition. It happened to be that when I started working on the Eastern Docklands, we had just made a holiday trip to England, to Bath, so that was also in my head. And then you had this as a given. These are my sketches from that time. Well, think of all these things in our heads, not only in my head, but in many heads. And also the found object, l'objet trouvé, Marcel Duchamp, transformation as a phenomenon. It ended up like this, and here you see the biggest example of this kind of thinking. The form was there before there was any content. So there was this thing with all these cuts, there was a form, there was a number of square meters, there was a parking garage, there was an entry, there was a footbridge, but there were no functions. The functions came later. So that is the other way around from functionalist urbanism and the highlight of postmodern period, I think. And it influenced, of course, the whole thing. Eastern Docklands had also a little Japanese moment. That is when we were looking for low-rise, high-density, and we found a project in Japan, in Fukuoka, by OMA. 3 stories, 100 houses per hectare, and then later the plan by West 8. Same idea. Here you see Java Island, Here you see the church on Haarlemmerstraat. Here you see our own planning department, our scheme for the beginning of the whole planning. Open the view to this church, and we had suddenly many architects, and we had to have them cooperate, and they had to realize that they were only an architect of a building and not of a whole city. So that's why we made this very big model. It was 6 meters long with everything in it, where they could put their big building, which suddenly was a small building. So this fragmented city, you can see it here. Well, the central space, of course, also will have a makeover. And underneath this water, that will be bigger, will be the biggest bike parking in the Netherlands. Entry here, exit here underground. So the whole central part. I will end this postmodern with houthavens. Well, I'm good in time. We had found out that these islands, that the width of the island is in fact decisive for what you can do there. So we thought, well, if we make islands, 7 islands in this case, we give them different widths, then we create a variety in an organic, in a kind of natural way. This is the plan. And of course, the cars had to disappear because this city would be also pedestrian and bike. Well, it ended up like this. I asked Hino yesterday, what do you think? A little bit too much, he said. I agree. It was not necessary to do all this variation. Still, it has been done very carefully and also with a lot of skill. Because by introducing all these kind of styles, Sjoerd Soeters has seen the opportunity to increase the number of houses from 1,800 to 2,700. Because everybody wants to be here because it looks so lekker. The main thing of here, one of these islands, they have different profiles and different streets. There will be canals and bridges. And here this diagonal bike route through the whole thing. You see the very intelligent use of square meters in this plan. This will be water. And then suddenly there's the big scale, the scale of the whole estuary, A. The main thing, of course, here was because when we made the plan, we talked a lot with the people living in Spaarndammer Buurt, this neighborhood, an old communist neighborhood with strong connections between the people and also good advisors on their side. And of course, they didn't want a big block of yuppies in front of them. And we also wanted to make the connection. So that's why this road disappeared underground. And we made the school for this neighborhood over here and the new supermarket for that neighborhood over here. And a space in the middle. And now you really see it working. Here's one of the yuppies going to the Albert Heijn. And here's one of the yuppie mothers bringing the children. And here is the people from the old neighborhood and the people from the new neighborhood united on one place. But does it now work? That's really the question, of course. And I don't know. They sit here together on a bench, but they still don't talk. Well, neoliberal, I've been thinking a lot. How does it end? What are we in now? I think neoliberal is the best word. And it started probably with the famous book about New York, Delirious New York, by Rem Koolhaas. This kind of drawings, this drawing especially. Skyscrapers making love, after making love, as it looks. A little bit tired. Koolhaas makes clear that Le Corbusier went to New York and he said, well, the towers are too low. Everybody knows that. Towers are too low. They must be much higher, then you can make green around it. Well, of course, it was ridiculous, and nobody listened to him. He went away back to Paris, and Koolhaas went to New York to find out what the qualities are. And this book is one great ode to Manhattan about what capitalism can do for building. If it's good or bad, I don't know, but it is what happened. And it is also what influenced Amsterdam, as you can see. And what also happened is that the system that underlies the Amsterdam planning, the land lease system, all what's yellow is city land, and red are the lease contracts, is now in discussion, has come in discussion some 7 years ago, which is a very crucial and principal thing. That is the highlight of neoliberal. And here's Koolhaas in Amsterdam, an iconic building, I think. I think it's a beautiful building also, but it is also an icon that is a hotel. So, as a symbol for Amsterdam, we have a hotel. Sef Hemel has his thing, because he asked for an icon and he asked for tourism on the Zuidas. Now, here it is. Yeah, Zuidas, of course. A grid, and within the grid, every architect is the king of his own plot. We do care for the quality of what you see as a pedestrian. So that's a difference perhaps with Shibuya. But the togetherness of Berlage, we biked yesterday through all Amsterdam, and Hino liked the Berlage the best. This is Zuidas from the south. It is a little bit more ordered than Shibuya, of course. There is also no possibility to go higher than this 100-meter height. And we have a kind of checkerboard system for the high rises. Well, that's how you live in Zuidas. And this is how the street looks. It's not bad. Is it Amsterdam? That is, of course, one of the questions. Eiburg is also a result of this neoliberal thinking. The city sold the land on forehand to a consortium of private investors and developers. So not buying the land, doing the urbanism yourself, but selling the whole thing. And I have been part of the team that designed what is now being built, so I have had a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun making the plan, but it is, of course, neoliberal. The city didn't do it itself. The city gave it to the private parties. This is the principle. And that's still an important thing in Amsterdam. Find ways to mix all categories of people into one city. This was one of our inspirations, and this also, Manhattan, of course. And, well, it worked quite well. This is where our suburb now is, where the most children live, where you can have all kinds of space in and out your house, and where you can also live very well, and have a view to the next and last phase of Eiburg that will be here, is under construction as we speak. What's next? What will be next? These are all the spaces, all the colored figures are places where there will be densification. The city will not expand, not in the green here, not in the green there, but it will densify or it will shrink, because people need more space in-house every year, one could say. Interesting is this advice of the national level, the College van Rijksadviseurs. They propose several models. And of course it is all about investment in infrastructure. Do we make the north-south line connect to Schiphol, or do we do other things? Where do we build and what kind of environments do we want to make? Well, something for the debate later on perhaps. And this is the situation, as one could say, of urbanism on the scale of the neighborhood, the scale where you can see buildings and streets. Zuidas, Buiksloterham. This is in Amstel 3. Here you see Arena, Belmer Arena Station. Here is the arena. Here's Belmermeer. And here you see Havenstad. That is still in a more preliminary phase and not very concrete yet. with infrastructure and building, street urban design. Well, also perhaps something for later on. And, well, of course I have to say, buy the book. There are still some 100 or two from the 2000 that have been printed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. I agree, buy the book. Tom, you said something really interesting. You said it always starts with inspiration, or it begins with inspiration. Yeah. It starts with quality and then it becomes quantity.
Yeah.
In what kind of phase are we now in Amsterdam? Are we closer to quality or are we closer to quantity? If you see all the new neighborhoods or...
Yeah, I think that we are slowing down in numbers of houses the last 2-3 years. What is under construction now is all planned 3-4 years ago. So perhaps that will be a good moment for new inspiration, for new ways of defining what is Amsterdam, what should the city be, how does it look, how does it work. I think Havenstad is very, very interesting in this respect because until now we have never been able to mix work and housing. Always separate areas, housing too boring, and the other side also not interesting enough. So now in Havenstad there is this opportunity to mix it really, live on top of something where real work is being done.
Do you think that's going to be the next step in Amsterdam?
I think so, yeah.
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 And so you say we need to sit down and find something.
This is a good moment also because the building is slowing down because the city wants more social housing, more affordable housing. That's totally understandable.
But at the same time, like Evans, our alderman says, we have to build and we have to build really fast because there's
Yeah, but he can say we have to build really fast, but he doesn't build himself.
Yeah.
He has to find parties that build. And that's not really working very well at the moment. So inventions have to be made.
Yeah, and where we have to find... You have 11 cities in the book.
Yeah.
Included, Amsterdam included. Where do we have to find the inspiration? Is there a place where we should go to find inspiration?
No, I think you should always travel and look, but you have to use your own grey cells to find a new formula that fits Amsterdam, because it's almost always impossible. Because net there was an idea that in Tokyo nothing is planned, but think about the power supply, think about sewers, think about public transport for 35 million. Working flawlessly day in, day out. That is a lot of planning. Only the visible planning, the kind of planning we know and we like, perhaps that it is orderly and that it is, well, it's consciously discussed. That is a big discussion. We have this kind of discussions in Tokyo. These kind of discussions are never there. I've been there once for a lecture and it was for a construction company who thought, well, interesting, guy from Europe.
Yeah. Thank you, and we see you back at the panel discussion. Thank you. Theo, where are you? Are you there? Be welcome. Theo, you made the pictures for the book.
Yep. Oh.
Yeah,
that helps.
It helps. Yeah.
Yeah.
How much time you took for? Because you had to go to 11 cities.
Yeah.
Well, Rotterdam is close because Rotterdam is also in the book. Amsterdam, but well, you had to go to Sao Paulo, to Tokyo, to Paris.
It took me a year. So over a period of a year, I visited 10 cities, Rotterdam included, because that's also a visit. I live nearby Amsterdam, so that was it was easy to do. And I think most of the time there was not much time there was not enough funding to stay there for a couple of months. So, so it was always a quick visit. So
And quick visit is
a week, 5 days, 6 days, depending where it was.
and do you prepare yourself, or you want to go without any information and feel the city and walk around and?
Well, I think that would be very interesting to see the pictures when you go there without any information and just start. No, it was very well organized, of course. It started with the discussions with Ton Schaap about how can you make a useful contribution to a book like this. And I was just thinking about the image is gone, but the 2 images you use today, and Hino-san made a remark about that. How do you represent a city by images? That is my task as a photographer, and especially in this book. The images you use today for the presentation, the general images, Hino-san made a remark that he didn't recognize Tokyo and he didn't recognize Amsterdam. But sometimes you have images which are made for a certain audience and they want to be confirmed in their expectations. And that's what's happening here. Both, we could say, stereotypes, a cliche. With this book, when I started with photography, most of the texts were ready. And we discussed how photography could add something which was not there in the text. So it's not an illustration to the text, but of course it was inspired by the text.
And stay away from the cliches.
If that is possible, because sometimes you really need a cliché to stress a point, to make a point. But we decided a couple of things. First of all, we don't use many images. So we decided that we're going to use 6 or 7 images per city. And it's not about a city. It's about a street, an avenue, a railway station. Shibuya is also about a railway station. And the funny thing is that when you read a text written by an author which knows what he's talking is about, some of those aspects you can't use. And Hino-san told about Shibuya, and when we were there together, he mentioned that Shibuya is a pizza. You can see the area as a pizza slice. The funny thing is that when you're walking there, you don't have the experience that you're walking in a pizza slice. That's only what you can see when you look at the map, at the sublimation of a city.
It feels united in a way.
Well, I'm like every ordinary visitor of a town. I walk there, and I'm not in a helicopter and have not that view. And it is not the abstraction of a map. So you have to deal with what you see on the street. Let me show you some of those pictures, and I'll give you.
Tell us. You're going to show us the photos and tell us more about both Amsterdam and Tokyo.
Okay. That's the picture which I just mentioned. So we decided to make to stress a couple of points in this photography. When it comes to Amsterdam, it was very interesting to look at the shared space. How do people use space, and what is private and what is the public space? And we also decided that I was only going to photograph along the River. For a long time, Amsterdam ignored its waterfront, and one of the greatest changes over time, of course, has been that we turned our back, and we are again looking at the waterfront. And so I photographed the waterfront with only 6 images in the end. This is quite nearby Borneo-Sporenburg, where the designers really succeeded very well in making this connection with private and public. And here also you saw in the images of Ton how this space can be used during the summertime. It's like you're at the beach. And Amsterdam is almost now situated as it is a sea resort, almost a beach resort. And in the summertime, this was not in a very summer day, but you see the connection with the River. this is also about shared space. I mean, it's amazing for Amsterdam, and especially for foreigners, when they see how people on bikes and walking without any traffic rules. That's how I experience it, and it goes quite well. I mean, it's amazing. And of course, opening up towards the river needs new icons, and that happens, of course, here with these buildings. I guess most people here in the audience are very familiar with what they see. Nothing new here. And this is also what intrigued me very much. Tom mentioned this project, of course. Here you see in a new project the alleys again returning, but also the city as a stage. And sometimes it's presented like you're in a theater, and then it opens up and you have the whole complete view with the panorama, which was also what I was looking for in Tokyo. This is again ending and stressing the point about this shared space, and that it's a city with a lot of people. In the Netherlands, we are great in building cities, especially new towns, where you walk there and make photographs like me do. There are no people on the street. Everybody is working during daytime, and I always get to complain there are no people on your pictures, and I'm not scaring them away. They're just not there. They're arriving at 6 o'clock. That's the way our systems work. Brings me to Tokyo. Tokyo, we photographed 2 parts of town. And I was happy to say that I was not there alone, that Hino-san was there, and Moriko and Felix Klaus, because it's hard to photograph something where you're not familiar with. I've been several times to Japan and always tried not to photograph there because I was not sure what I was looking at and what do those photographs mean if you don't know what you're photographing. And here we try to stress 2 things. High density and low density, suburbia and residential areas and the high-rise areas. And I was so amazed that the residential areas are very crowded when it comes to, there are many houses on small plots, and there's never a view or a panorama. You never can look away, which is amazing. Where can you look away? Where you have a panorama? That's where the high-rise is. That's what I try to photograph and show in these kind of images. It's a room with a view sometimes. You have this huge vista, this panorama. And I also wanted to photograph it as, I'm stressing the point in this photograph that you're looking at a window. And it's a construction and the city is presented to you. So this dramatic theater-like point I wanted to stress. Here you have this again. I mean, this is like it is designed how you can look at a city, and that's what photography is about. It's a representation of a place. You're not there. I'm there, and I'm showing you what's there. That's why photography was invented. It had nothing to do with objectivity. It's all kind of choices. And of course, this is one of the other things, which is the amazing amount of people walking there, go to the railway station, go out. If you want to spend the night and being excited what's happening in the town, go to one of those railway stations and stay there for a couple of hours and look at how people change trains in just a few minutes, and a huge amount of people. And this is what I wanted to stress with this long exposure in this image. And then you go back to suburbia. There's hardly any place, but there's always some room left for an Audi. And this is your sewer system. But Ton was stressing, of course, there's a structure and design and planning in a city like Tokyo. It's under the ground, or it's elevated highways. But it has been designed some way or other. Maybe it's not one great director who is organizing everything. Okay, I had 10 minutes, and I think I succeeded.
By far.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
I just want to stay in 10 minutes
Thank
the
you.
limit.
Thank you, Terry. Was it hard to get the core of Tokyo, because it's so big. It's so, if you're only you're there for a week. Was it a big effort for you, or did it go easily?
Yeah, that's a hard question. No, it's never easy because it's always about concept and editing. So what I'm looking for, what kind of images will... it's not hard to photograph, especially not for me. It's easy. But if it has to be a meaningful image, and you only have 7 images in a book like this for a city, then it's hard. And you think, where do we get to the core of the story presented by images? So that's more about thinking. It's more intellectual process than it's about photography itself. Photography for me is easy.
Yeah. Did you get lost in Tokyo?
No, because I was never alone.
Okay, that helps. Okay, that helps. Well, thank you.
Okay.
And well, if everybody wants to enjoy the photos, buy the book. Huh? They're all in the book.
Okay.
Thank you. We're going to the last part of this night. Tom, Hino, be welcome on the stage. Moriko. Yeah, you can give an applause to them. Yeah. First go. Yeah. We will. Moriko, you asked me because I invited you and you said I want to open this panel discussion because I want to show where Tokyo and Amsterdam at least come together a little bit.
Okay. Good evening. So where to? This
oh,
one?
no, you have to, the other way
Okay,
around.
no.
Yeah.
Okay. And then this. Okay. So this is a very historic moment. This was moment Ton and Hino-san met each other. I moved to Amsterdam from Tokyo in 1992, and since then I'm really fascinated to going back to Japan and travel through country and walking in Tokyo. And it's my fortunate that I know Hino-san because he's the master walker of Tokyo. And whenever we are back in Tokyo, small group of people, we walk around Tokyo like this. And not only that he knows incredibly different places with different feeling, but he's one of the, let's say, to be precise, one of the 2 people in Japan who can really explain Tokyo in very short concepts. And that is really incredible. But you have seen it today. He gave a couple of things to explain the essence of Tokyo. So this is a moment when we are walking in Tokyo together, and this walking resulted in this great book. And I'm very happy that we are now together here on this stage. But maybe it may sound strange that I was born in Tokyo, and why did I have to come to Amsterdam to discover Japan and discover Tokyo? And I want to explain a little bit. This is the, let's say, great map of Tokyo. I was born here, and I used to go to the high school here. So every morning, this cliche, traffic jam, packed in the train, 1 hour in the train, commuting up and down, up and down. So this is practically every life of Tokyo 8. And if you're born here, if you're going every day living like that, you will never get the idea of what kind of city you're living. And you even don't have any idea, and even you don't want to know what the structure of Tokyo, because you feel very much just you are a replaceable piece of masa. So when I moved to Amsterdam, I came to sense of place, I came to place of history, and I came to place with structure of urbanism. So I got completely excited, so I wanted to learn everything, and that resulted in a book on, about the Dutch design. And afterwards I wanted to learn about Japan again, that resulted in an exhibition in IE. And tonight, we talk about Tokyo and Amsterdam, and I'm quite often in this situation talk about Amsterdam and Tokyo, And everybody says, hey, Tokyo and Amsterdam, one is 35 million people, and in Amsterdam, 800,000 people. You can compare it, and Tokyo has big activities, but there's no urban designing. Amsterdam is a perfect system. Why can't you compare about two cities? And I thought so for a long time, probably until 10 years ago. But now I think, really honestly, we are in the same situation. If your city is in the most important city in your country, the developed country, where relatively doing well in global society, you are in the same situation. You are in the same condition. And I would like to brutally give 3 concepts. In such city, you have an extreme concentration of people on the capital. Probably the way of dealing with numbers are different, but this is the same situation. And coexistence of extreme growth and gradual shrinkage at the same time. Maybe you don't recognize that in Amsterdam inner city, but I will try to explain that. It's also the case. And both Tokyo and Amsterdam, we really have to be able to make kind of system and vision to think about city beyond the border of the city, of this administration. If Amsterdam people, if Amsterdam urban planner, politician only can decide about Amsterdam, only can think about Amsterdam, I think you quite quickly have a problem. But it's the same as Tokyo. Tokyo is not about the city of Tokyo. It is a conglomerate of 35 million people who are not part of the same administration. That's it. So just to look at, when I moved to Amsterdam, Tokyo was like that. And in 2016, it is practically like that. What has happened in numbers? Tokyo has 556 skyscrapers higher than 100 meters, which is built after 2000. It's because before it was very difficult to make high-rise in Tokyo, but the regulation has been eased to make it easier to make skyscrapers. Oops, sorry. Oops. And interesting is, it is not about office building which is created. It is housing. It is, so more and more people are living in Tokyo, and more buildings are built. But in Amsterdam, since I came here, this is the, I don't know if you know this project, 1992 OMA, working on iUbers. I know it very well because first, when I moved to Amsterdam, I worked for Ben van Berkel. First project I worked on of this project. So when I was making these models, I thought, this is dream. It will never happen. But what happened last 20 years in Amsterdam, as Ton explained, this amount of development in a city of 800,000 people, that is incredible. So it has changed as much as Tokyo, but different is, one has very good planning industry, and one is rely on the potentials and money. And the size is also, well, if your city administration, 800,000 is very small, but at the end you're talking about Randstad, great metropolitan region, you're talking about a couple of million people in Amsterdam. But what I want to explain a little bit is about second concept, extreme growth and gradual shrinkage at the same time. It is, let's say, incredible phenomena that Tokyo is growing all the time. And Osaka, other cities not growing, the most of cities declining. While the Tokyo itself, Japan itself is shrinking, graying. So it is shrinking at the same time growing. It is, and what happens in the city is that the growth is not gradual. Tokyo is growing as a total, but some places are growing and some places are shrinking. And the shrinking means the percentage of the empty houses are very different from areas. It is not so that inner city percentage is lower. No, inner city has certain area has high percentage of vacancy, more than 16%. And rich and poor are very much divided. And you can really compare these two maps, very much related. So it means, like Hino-san explained, this is again, of course, because development of Shibuya is really phenomenal. But as also Hino-san said, this is one of the crossing point. It is one of the big development. So in this incredible concentration of people, you need this kind of changes of a city, incredible paces, scale. And this was just opened in November. I was picking up those photos from Instagram. So people really come to feel the futuristic Tokyo. And young people who are moving into the Tokyo, they don't think about living in suburbia. They all want to live in the skyscrapers because two people earning in the one family, you have to connect it. So you cannot live in suburbia. So everybody coming back to the center, and everybody wants to live in skyscraper. And next to skyscrapers, as also Hino-san also showed, and just next to this development, there is a decaying part, there is empty part. So there's on one hand, incredible development, and at the same time, very small fineness. And you could also call it problem, but you can also call it incredible potentials. So you need big line, small fine hands. Both are, I think, necessary for contemporary important cities. That was my...
Thank you.
Yes.
Sit with us.
Yes.
Moriko, you know both worlds really well. What could Ton and other people, other urban designers working in Amsterdam learn from Tokyo?
Well, I don't know if it is really so because I'm not in the inside of the system, but the planning in Amsterdam, I feel that the real people, in the phase of planning, real people living in the city are a bit of absent. Because in Japan, if small projects happens, then it's about the people who have the ground, who is going to live, and whose neighborhood. The situation is very concrete. And of course, because it's not concrete...
How do you mean? Like the developers?
Yeah, it is talking only about always, the project always start from abstract numbers, and abstract numbers of money, and abstract numbers of houses, and as if there's kind of standard people. And of course, that is also necessary if you make a big project, but I think it is another side, like real concrete project, looking at people. Yeah, I think that kind of character is a miss a little bit.
Here in Amsterdam?
Yeah, it's too abstract. I feel very abstract. If you look at new plans and the Sluis House and all
feels a little bit cold, or
yeah, it is just as if people who are planning knows who are going to be and who are the people, and practically who are they?
But how do the developers or urban planners in Tokyo manage to involve the people?
I think the people has to do the project in a smaller project. I think that the owner of the ground, or the person who is going to invest, and has to deal with concrete situation, concrete people around, and so I don't say that they are involving people very well, but they're more close to the real need and the instant necessity of the situation.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that is possible.
No, use use the microphone.
Sorry.
Yeah. Ton, is Moriko in a way right?
That I'm not sure what the thing is that you. I don't know. When I had to answer the question, what can we learn from Tokyo? I think, well, look at public transport. All these three main stations, Shinjuku, Tokyo Central, and Shibuya, they all have 10 times as many people every day than our central station here in Amsterdam. And it all works, well, like a machine. And Tokyo realizes that it is not possible to make a dense and nice city with cars. I don't know whether this conclusion has officially been made. I don't know that, but the fact is that there are almost no cars. There are a few ways, but most of the city is walkable. The scale is, apart from these tower areas, which are still the minority, the scale of the rest of the city is very nice. And what I also like is this: there are no buildings in a wall. There are no party walls in Tokyo. Every house has its own walls. Between two houses, there's always. That's also because of earthquake regulations, but it also makes the city very flexible. If you take out one house, then you can put another one in. So here we have always a project of a whole street. That's not the case in Tokyo. So there are some things that are very interesting.
Yeah.
And also, of course, if you see a chance of a totally devastated city in 1945, and in 1960 you are already one of the main cities in the world, then also something is good. That cannot be. It's perhaps not by urban design or urban planning, but it must be other ways. And planning the public transport system is also planning. And we have now one metro line. It took us 20 years, and we're still talking about it. And now we need another 2 kilometers.
Yeah. Mr. Hino, could you explain how do you make a metro line and do it fast?
The first subway, it was built in 1910 or something, from Asakusa to Ginza, and it connects to Shibuya now. And I think the 1960 is great moment, really, because it's a time when Tokyo is biggest city in the world. They know what will be happen in the future, so they can concentrate to infrastructure, building the train station system or the regulation. So the post-war period is a kind of peace period for us, and the engineer working hard to develop step by step. And finally, we are we are the strongest user of train in the world, and
But the base was laid in the 60s.
Yes.
For the public transport.
Yeah.
And is it also because they already thought of the 80s or the 90s? Well, they had really a view on the.
Yes. For the infrastructure, there is a strong plan, and they stick to that plan, and it's still going on. Subway is almost completed, but road system is underway. The plan was made in 1923. It's still going on.
Yeah. And what's going to be the next step?
It's on the peak of the population. It will be shrinking, as Moriko-san said, and so we have to maintain the system livable. So it's another phase, I think. So we can deal with this pace now, but the shrinking makes another problem.
Yeah. If you look to the shrinking, could you say that all in those new buildings you have the average age is way younger than in those older small buildings? Are those two worlds, or those two separate worlds, or isn't it like that?
I think before there is one side game. Maybe in 80s, 90s, zero, we are going to rush to the richer direction.
Yeah.
But now people think the other way. There is another kind of happy life, and find a place in those old buildings.
Suburb life. Yeah.
Not really suburb. In the center of in the city, there is so many residents, and they take care of it and live and make their own life.
Yeah.
It's popular now.
Also young families and
yes.
Yeah. If I ask you same question I asked you before, but the way around, what can the urban planners from Tokyo learn from Amsterdam?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mean Tokyo, Amsterdam gives some suggestion.
Yeah.
I think this kind of discussion is necessary for Tokyo.
Yeah.
I think because
How to
people
grow.
think the problem as their problem, their own problem. They have to share.
Yeah.
I mean, Tokyo citizen.
I think what would be very nice, because Amsterdam people feel that Amsterdam it is their city. It's a kind of very strong notion of Amsterdammers. Of it is my city. And interesting is that it is not so that they are born in Amsterdam or so, but they still feel that it is own city. And I think that is a little bit lacking or completely lacking in Tokyo. More and more people come to Tokyo and live, but they don't feel it is their city. They don't feel that they own the city. I think they
How
don't.
do you explain that?
Yeah, why is that? Because that's why there's no. I mean, they don't think that they are entitled to talk about if the new Olympic Stadium is proper or not. They don't think that it's not part of their.
It's not mine. It's not.
It is not my concern.
Was it a kind of a shock when you came here to the Netherlands that every small house that is built, that the whole neighborhood is talking about or discussing it or protesting or?
It is for me more shocking was everything was designed. Urban design was I have seen the Borne-Sporenburg was built, a plant built and realized, people living, and this process is incredible.
This is
It is incredible, and it is that there's some kind of consensus.
Why do you think it's incredible?
That it is street is designed, and that doesn't happen in Tokyo.
What does happen with the street?
Every house will be filled with some kind of idea of the owner.
Maybe.
But public space. If you look to the public space,
There's street.
So there is big difference about land ownership. In Japan, land ownership is so strong. Nobody can decline their need. They can build anything in the regulation, in the limit of regulation, anything.
Also in front of
Nobody
the building.
Oh,
can deny it.
If you take enough distance according to the regulation, you can build that volume.
Anything.
Anything.
Yeah.
In any red or yellow or blue or black or gold.
yeah.
Or with or without window. No, well, with,
It's
with
the
window.
earth.
With window.
Yeah, you never know with Japanese. Yeah.
Maybe,
Regulation. It's a regulation.
Yeah. Oh, it's a regulation. Okay.
maybe in Holland, you have to show the vision and make the.
Yeah, you have supervisors. Tom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it is one of the most fascinating moments to work as an architect. If you design building, you have to go to Welstand, beauty committee, and really enthusiastically talking about this is my design, that's and the committee member said, and what does city get back from your building then? You're so enthusiastic about design, but what does city get back from it? And I was like, oh, I never thought about that. And I think that, I think it is good. Every architect can answer to that question if it is asked. If it is asked.
But those questions are never asked in Tokyo. Ton, could you say that bit by bit Amsterdam is coming closer to the Tokyo model?
Well, what Moriko said, that these capital flows, that they are universal, that is certainly true. The money is looking for destinations, and real estate is the only one that looks to be profitable. So that is in Tokyo, and in some neighborhoods it is in Tokyo, and in other ones it isn't. And that's the same in Holland. In some places of Amsterdam, everybody wants to put their money in, and then there's pressure to make it higher, of course. But we have a lot of public debate. The Sluisbuurt debate took a year or two, and well, I think the majority agrees that what is now under construction is the wise choice. And that's not the case in Tokyo, I think. And I also.
But if you take a look,
Yeah.
for example, to Havenstad, where the land ownership is not as the Belmer.
No. That's interesting. Yes, that's comparable to Tokyo, and because the biggest difference between Tokyo and Amsterdam is not the supervisor, but the land ownership. That's the thing. I remember a visit from a Japanese gentleman who was the real estate owner of the biggest area near Central Station, Tokyo. I don't remember the name, but a very nice guy. He looked for inspiration because his real estate value was going down. And I said, well, you have to take some traffic out. All the streets were also his streets. It were not the streets of the city. It was his area, total, the buildings and the public space. So the space was not public. And I said, well, make it look public and take some cars out, widen the sidewalks, take care for some trees so that people not always have to go in overpasses or underpasses to the next building, but that they can be in the open air for in between the things. Well, I think they did it. They did it.
They did it. Yeah, they did it. Mitsubishi Jisho. Yeah.
Mitsubishi, yeah.
Mitsubishi.
Would you like to work in Tokyo as a?
Well, that depends on where, but I think it. If I could work for Mori company and do a very big thing, then you can be very effective. But I think if you are in the bureaucracy as a planner in Tokyo, I don't know whether you're very effective. It will be regulations and new regulations and political deals in back rooms.
Yeah. So you stay in Amsterdam.
Yes.
Okay, that's good. At the end, if you take a look to both cities, where can you compare both cities? In which?
Comparable.
Yeah.
With Amsterdam?
Yeah. In which aspects you can compare both cities?
Difficult question.
With Amsterdam? No, Scandinavian cities.
No. If you take it to Tokyo and Amsterdam.
Okay.
We have still 20 minutes, so take your time.
When I'm going around the Bella area, I hit on a city in China. It's, I don't know English pronunciation, but Koshu, Guangzhou, with a great landscape with water, and it's brick city, and the atmosphere is so different. It's communist country, and this is totally different.
Yeah.
But the combination is something common.
Yeah.
And there is slight feeling of tradition, not very deep, but there is some strong, common tradition during each age of project. I think it's interesting, but I don't know what's the point myself. But at Guangzhou is an interesting difference, might be.
Yeah. Moriko, for you, do you see some comparison between, well, your
common
Tokyo and Amsterdam? Yeah, the city you were born and the city you're living now.
No, as I say, it is like systems. And also the volume is different, but I really feel that both cities living a really 2090 situation together. So that incredible concentration of the capitals, and only people with money can live in the good places, and that on one hand. So I'm very curious how Amsterdam will. I don't know, it depends on decision. If Amsterdam stays in the decisions is Amsterdam is a mixed city, how you going to realize, how you going to maintain it? It is not comparison, but I think how to make a good balance of dynamic populations is, I think both cities has a common problem, challenge, and I wonder how Amsterdam.
In the way, do you think that Amsterdam should watch out that it not becomes like Tokyo?
to become like more
neoliberal, liberal.
and it becomes monotonous, to lose the diversity, and how to keep in this neoliberal situation to keep the diversity. In Tokyo can, because there's a different neighborhood. Next to skyscrapers, there's like cheap areas. But in Amsterdam, all the social housing in the inner city is one by one sold when somebody is gone. And how to keep the diversity within the city. And I think that is
the big challenge for.
I think it's any city's challenge. But in Japan, we have kind of material, like decayed small houses, that gives us opportunity. And I wonder where is that kind of chances in Amsterdam.
Yeah. To end, last question for you, Mr. Hino. What's the big challenge for Tokyo at the moment?
Cynicism is a big problem. People tired of urbanism or planning itself. They cannot be very positive for projecting for the future. So it's a big problem. There's some generation totally rejecting. And we have to, architect and urban planner is an occupation to be positive. So it's a big challenge.
Lack of optimism, in a way.
Yeah.
Ton, for you, the challenge for Amsterdam?
Well, I think some of the effects of global capitalism have to be defeated. So there has, like Wieboud...
it's a big task.
Yeah. And of course, you don't do this task on a global scale. You have to be inventive and be intelligent and find your way. The way Wieboud created the circumstances to build the Plan Zuid by lending money in London. So he worked with the capitalists, but he also took the speculation away by buying the land and giving Berlage the commission to make a plan. And he simply implemented this plan. So he was smarter than the landowners and the speculators. So that is you will never defeat capitalism, but you have to be smarter for your own city.
You don't think Evans is the next Wieboud?
Well, perhaps he is. Why not? But he is of the right political conviction. So Wieboud was also a little bit. Of course, he was from the. Yeah, his father had a company or so. Was an entrepreneur. So he was not strange from lending money and be smarter than somebody else. I think that's necessary.
So Amsterdam has to be creative to find the balance between.
Yeah.
And is it still like a big search, or do you think we are close to the right balance?
I don't know that. I really don't know whether because that has to happen somewhere in the town hall. Somebody has to think, well, if we do this and make a good coalition with like for Java Island, nobody wanted to build on KNSM Island, for example. And then the alderman Schaefer said, well, to the Bouwfonds Nederlandse Gemeente, he was a member, of course, at being Amsterdam, and he was a big member. So he said, well, I will get you if you don't build there. So that was not perhaps very smart, but it was effective. So as long as it's effective.
Yeah. Are there any last questions? I see one minute. I keep the mic.
And thank you for the presentation today. And this is just my comment, but to be honest, I'm so afraid if the audience today may have the wrong vision of Tokyo, because I'm from Tokyo and I was living there over 25 years. And first, I would say Tokyo and the Tokyo metropolitan area are different. And Tokyo metropolitan area is just 1/3 of the area of Tokyo, and presentation today was only on Tokyo metropolitan area, and in Tokyo there are also a lot of beautiful natures and rivers, and I also have many friends who are living in villages, and they are doing organic farming. And there are also many beautiful islands in Tokyo, which are World Heritage today. And back to metropolitan Tokyo area, and there are, first of all, 23 special districts, municipalities. And there are clear difference between western and eastern parts.
So you hereby you made the correction, Mr. Hino.
I'm like a little about. I little. Oh, sorry. I write something in that book, so please read my article. But anyway, there is a difference between special district and metropolitan area. But the material I used in today's presentation is limited to that area. But basically, the situation, the problem, the
challenge,
the context is common, I think. Okay. Yes, there is some nature in the suburbia.
But at least we know now that there is also nature in Tokyo.
Yeah,
that's good.
But also inside Tokyo, there is sea, and there is a kind of imperial parts have the strong nature.
Okay.
So there is diversity.
Yeah.
Of course, and there is many sides.
I understand his point, and of course there's beautiful nature, and it is like Hino-san said, it is big diversity, and I think that is also the asset, and it is so that there's a lot of people who are especially going to those areas to choose to live, and that is also part of the, let's say, decay part, and there is a more possibility to do something with that. But of course, he's very right.
Okay, he made his point. Last question. Yeah. We have a notebook.
So, thank you. Mrs. Kira, you mentioned that land ownership in Tokyo is very strong. And Mr. Hiro, you mentioned that developing large plots of land is a difficult process in Tokyo. Having said that, when I went to Tokyo last year, I saw very few resemblances to the public squares and areas that we have in Western cities. So I was wondering if the Japanese planners and architects have some sort of a modern practice for making public squares or areas where people can greet and meet, as we do in Western European cities.
The public squares. And the question is for?
The both of them.
Who wants to start?
The government, the difference of government and public is always confused in Japanese majority. It's come from historical context, but also there is a distance from the people to the public. And I think democracy is based on that system. We share the public space and people join and give something to the public. And in that meaning, the Tokyo public space, yes, there is, but sometimes very fragile.
You don't have to go to Tokyo to see great squares.
Shibuya, the square. The
Scramble Square.
Yeah.
No,
Do you agree, Monico?
Yeah, I think so. I think it is. Where is this the definition of public space, like it is understood in Western culture, which is starting from Greek, that you're a free person, you're allowed to speak up, and that is obviously not our culture, not our urban history. But it doesn't mean that there is no, let's say, the public space where people meet. But it is not that kind of. So if you expect European square kind of space, and you find, okay, this is square, but then you find out it's completely commercial space.
Yeah.
And but yeah.
And sometimes the public space in Japan is temporary. In a festival or in some event, there happen to be a public space. So it's something interesting.
Yeah.
There is some contrast.
Something for next year in Pakhuis Zwijger. You come again from Tokyo. Thank you, Mr. Hino. Thank you, Mr. Schaap. Thank you, Miss Kira. And Theo, you made some photos of tonight. Yeah. Great. And thank you all for coming. And I can't say it enough, buy the book. Thanks.